Yeah. Okay. So, really quickly, where were you born?
I was born in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. In
Iowa.
Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Uh, it's their claim to fame is Quaker Oats. It's the home of Quaker Oats.
Hmm.
So that's my bragging rights, Cedar Rapids, Iowa, Quaker Oats. Lived there till I was 12, and then my parents up and moved us to California. And then pretty much I'd lived in California for a good chunk of my life. And then about a year and a, I think about a year and a half ago, I moved to Oregon, to Ashland, Oregon. And
And
that's
you're
where I am
when were you born?
now. 1948. I'm 77.
And what part of California do you live most of your life or your whole life?
Well, down at, I would say just generally Orange County, where it's Laguna Beach, Dana Point. I spent some time in Yorba Linda, which nobody's ever heard of, but everybody's heard of Laguna Beach. Lived there for quite a number of years. And then I moved from Dana Point, which is like a next door neighbor city. And there were, I think, some others in between there. There was a period I moved a lot. I jumped around, but basically around Orange County. And anyway, a few other places like that, back in my 20s and 30s, when we're really mobile and off to, some other adventure or having to move for this reason or that. So, yeah, so now I'm in Ashland, Oregon, and I love it here. It's there's a lot of territory to explore. Let's put it that way.
When your earliest memories of what you wanted to be when you grew up as a child?
Oh, good question. I think that what really took over more than like, this is what I want to be is, developing skills at writing. I like you, and I know this about you too, but I love words. I just, I like putting words together. They're like puzzles in a way, even, verbally or on the written word, either way. So I love words. So back to your question, I think I think that when it got to high school and then on to college, I studied psychology. I got my bachelor's in psychology and ultimately my master's and PhD. But where I wanted to do when I was in high school is I played football. And I was gifted with, I was fast, very fast runner. So I was a halfback, a running back. So when I got to college, played in college, it was like,
Really?
what am I going to do? Well, I'll go play NFL or AFL or something like that, and I don't think I was quite good enough for that, for professional football, but I really was seriously considering it after the football season of my fourth year in college ended.
Wow.
It's like, what do I do now? And I never really made the effort to do that, but I was a jock. That was more important than studies. But the study, it was like part of the deal. I had to take something. So I took psychology. And then I was drawn into psychology. That became very fascinating. And UC Riverside, where I went, which is one of the towns I lived in also for a period of time, not in Orange County, but Riverside County or San Bernardino County. It wasn't a big football team. It was a B, it wasn't one of the A teams like USC or something like that. It was, you don't hear about much about UCR, the football. So, but it was a great place to play. And then I played rugby afterwards for a period of time. I loved rugby because that's the birthplace of American football, and very different in some ways, and obvious parallels in others. So, long answer to your question, but I didn't really have a calling or an ambition or anything like that. Seriously, other than I wanted to play football, but that vanished after a while. I was good, but I wasn't good enough for professional football.
The love for football, did that come from being a child in Iowa, do you think? And your father, perhaps?
My father, my brother, both of my two big brothers, they're half brothers, but I would call them my brothers. And I also have a half sister, different father. Especially my next oldest brother, 7 years older. He was a football player, and I always went to his football games with my parents. So there was an admiration for that. He was, wow, he got to play football. So I think that was part of my influence. And I think also the culture generally, I'm not sure this is really accurate, but I think the culture in the Midwest, particularly, was very strong on football. Ohio State, you know, Nebraska. I mean, all the Midwest countries, the Midwest states had a football team. So Chicago Bears, you know, there's a few I'm sure that would come to mind. So it was an important aspect of living, you know, I'd say just about anywhere in the Midwest. You know, the football season's here, that's what you do. You know, either go to a game or pardon?
Are you still a fan?
Not as much these days. No, I would rather go to a rugby game, you know, to be quite honest with you, than sit and watch football for 3 hours. You know, I've been there, done that. I could look back on my life. There's a few things like that where I really went into it 100%, and then it just gradually faded.
It does.
For whatever reason, you know, but am I a fan? Kind of a peripheral fan at this point. But, you know, if somebody said, hey, there's a rugby game going on right down the street here, I'd be there. I love it. It's got the flavor of football, but a whole different thing. Example, when you get tackled running the ball, you have to fall and let the ball go. And then everybody forms a scrum around you, scrum, scrimmage, etc. And they're trying to kick the ball out to their own team. And you can see the precedence. I'm not sure that's the right word, but the hint, you know, of what was to become American football.
Yeah.
American football is brutal.
Very. I was a season ticket holder through the Tom Brady years, New England, and I fell out of fandom probably since kind of this last 5 years, and this switch of realizing I've been there, done that, I'm moving on, and then on and on and on. And it's amazing how quickly you can just say, I don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you had two brothers, you said, growing up?
Yeah, two brothers and a sister, all by a different father. So they technically are half brothers and a half sister. Yeah, all older than me, of course. You know, my mother's second marriage was to my father.
Okay, were you the only one from the second marriage?
Yes.
Okay.
I have a faint memory of a baby that my mother had that was lost somehow, but I don't know the details. And, you know, I never found out, you know, is there really something to that story? So, but other than that, you know, my two brothers and my sister, I was very close to my sis. It was an alcoholic family. The identified alcoholic was my father. But having studied that extensively, naturally to understand it, and even going to meetings, you know, adult children of alcoholics. And I wrote a book, my very first book, but I didn't call it alcoholism. I called it Adult Children of Abusive Parents. And the title's a little bit like finger pointing, you know, at this stage, but okay, it's a good book. There wasn't a whole lot about trauma or PTSD at that time. And I was introduced to PTSD gradually, or trauma and post-traumatic stress disorder, through writing that book. It's a good book. I like it. I still stand by it, but the title's kind of funky. I would change the title, you know, a little bit, because it feels a little bit accusatory, like abusive parents. Yeah, well, okay, yeah, but
I was raised by an alcoholic father, 51 years alcoholic. He's 6 years sober now. He was over yesterday. Much of the work that I did and in my soul retrieval and journeying was going into a lot of our childhood trauma and memories. And he and I talk I have my relationship with my father today. He's 73, is better than it's ever been in my 47 years.
cool.
And it's, you know, so I can probably, we can probably share some war stories back in the day.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. For you is a lot of healing, I think, to be able to see somebody without that fog.
Yeah.
You know, of the alcohol, not the alcohol, but the alcoholism. You know,
so tell me about your first girlfriend.
Oh my God. Oh, I flush a little bit when you say that. Yet my hand goes to my heart too. I still think about her, you know, but not now how she is now. I think about her when we were together for a period of time. She was a song leader. Song girl, yeah, because they had cheerleaders and then they had song girls. Those are the ones with the pom poms.
Yeah.
You know, they would dance and stuff like that. And the first time I saw her, I was immediately in love with her. You know, what I would now say in love with her, infatuated.
Okay.
Linda Barker, I remember her. Absolutely just gorgeous, fun, you know, great to be with, etc. And we finally got together. I got the gumption because I'm a pretty shy kid. You know, when I was little, I was actually very shy, and I think it took getting older before I started to come out of that. So even around a pretty girl like her, I was kind of shy, but I finally asked her out to go to the prom, and my God, drop dead gorgeous. I still have memories, images, you know, of how she looked, and she had a certain exotic look about her that is attractive to me. Darker, um, unusual, kind of an unusual look. Very beautiful, but you know, rather unusual to compared to maybe the standards of today. So yeah, that's my first girlfriend. And I still, every once in a while, I feel like, oh, Linda, God, why didn't I stick with you? You know, that kind
Wow.
of, but that's all wasn't meant to
Sure.
be. I
When
trust that.
did you date through the summer? You said went to prom, your first date. So was that your junior prom or senior prom?
That would have been, I was a senior at the time. She was a junior. So I was the older man,
Mhm.
and not even quite a man fully yet. But yeah, we stayed together, I would say about 3 years. And what happened, quite honestly, is then I went off to college. You know, I did my, let's see, I did my bachelor's at UC Riverside. And what happened is it's sort of, I lost contact with her, you know, stopped calling her and such like that. And then I feel a little bit of a kind of a mild shame about it, you know, the way I treated her, not being straightforward with her, you know, about what was going on and where I was. You know, and my idea when I would go to college is that she would be able to come and stay with me and all that. And that happened, I think, once, and then it just kind of fell off. And also, frankly, I started seeing, you know, there were a lot of other girls at UC Riverside. So
I'm
I got
sure.
attracted to some others more as, you know, like uh, for fun, you know, rather than for a relationship.
You're a star football player too.
And that, you know, so I got to, you know, that got to be a calling on my calling card. So that was pretty cool. But, you
What do
know,
you
she still goes up in consciousness at times.
Did you ever follow? Did you ever see her again after college?
Yes, I actually I was grieving, quite frankly, after I came back. And one night I just drove over to where she was staying with her parents. She was the parents. And I really was thinking I might knock on the door. And then I had a cop come up and pull me over. And, you know, I was driving okay and all that. But I remember that policeman, he what's up? And I said, well, I'm just here because I want to see my girlfriend. You know, it's where she lives, you know, or my ex-girlfriend. Um, and it was late at night. It was, you know, it was weird if I think about it now, you know, like no wonder he stopped me. You know, it was 11 or 11:30 or 12 or something like that. I didn't actually think I would go up to the door and knock at that hour. You know, that would have been stupid, you know, and I'm not that stupid. But I just wanted to be close to her as best I could. But it was not appropriate, I guess. I'm not sure if that's the right word again. Um, it just didn't fit, you know, to actually pursue anything further with her. You know, we were done.
So that sense of grieving that you mentioned, right? I just did a TikTok about grieving a couple of weeks back, and the sense of inability to hold that energy, right? That's what I believe grieving is, and it's a way to release this emotion that you're feeling, but it comes from the heart. And so I wonder then, you know, that there's a pureness to that, I would think, in wanting to go be there and stuff. And that was, it's heartfelt so much that actually your heart led you to a place perhaps to get behind the wheel of a car and go that far before your mind said, okay, this is maybe a little strange. I feel right here, but
Right.
she's not in my heart space. Does that kind of resonate or make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's like, and plus I had the wherewithal, like I said, that it's like, I'm not going to go knock on the door, at 11:30 at night or something like that. Fortunately, I probably would have been arrested had I done that. I don't know.
It's like
But
that John Cusack movie
and
back
then-
in the day when he holds the radio over his head at the girl's window.
Yes. Oh God, yeah. I flashed on that scene. Yeah. What was that movie? That was
it wasn't Better Off Dead, was it?
No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, that's
the
a
classic
very iconic scene. Holding the radio up. Yeah, I remember that. It was kind of like that, but I didn't have the radio. So,
what's your view on marriage?
Well, I think it's an institution that is valuable, and I think it needs to be honored for what it is. It's a marriage, and it's two people that come together, preferably out of love, although sometimes it's done out of, in other cultures, it might just be more pragmatic, two groups that join together through the marriage of the man and the woman from either one. I think that it's now that at my age, especially, I see it as I feel it needs to be honored as something really sacred. Two people drawn together, and it doesn't matter whether they're together for the rest of their lives. First off, we humans live a lot longer, than back when. 35 years old, you're done. So, I think that it also, I think, needs to be left alone in the sense of being between the two people and how they define the rules, the regulations, the boundaries, etc. And there can be an open marriage where each one is okay with, supposedly, at least okay with having other partners, something like that. I think it's challenging these days, to stay, and this is a personal opinion, but to really stick with somebody over several years. Maybe it's because I haven't done so well at that, myself, quite frankly, but it's also because we're getting older, the population's really moving up, the demography of it. But I think it needs to be clear agreement between the couple. And again, whether that's a man and a man or a woman and a woman, that doesn't matter. It just needs to be clear agreement about what the rules and the boundaries are. And if it means to be exclusive, then great. Talk about it, make an agreement about it, and then if that changes, then you negotiate that, just like a business, you negotiate it. But it's also, I think it's challenging sometimes, especially these days, because we're in a very chaotic period, both politically and globally. So it just affects people in different ways. So I don't know if that answers your question adequately, but I do believe that, it's up to the two people, and I think these days, even though there's some pressures to forego same-sex marriages, I don't think that's okay. I think if a man and a man love each other and they fall in love, look, things are changing. It's not like it was, back 40, 50 years ago. It's just not that way. And people who are gay or love a partner of the same gender, great. Go for it. It's okay. It's really okay. And I know some people in my circle that are like that, meaning that are, with the same sex partner. And that's not me, but I honor that. Love is love, and yeah, we sanction it with marriage, and maybe it doesn't even need two people like that wouldn't need to be married, but I think it's okay to authorize that. I really do. I feel that in my heart, my chest hits my heart, because there's a lot of pressure otherwise to disallow that. And I just don't, I'm not there. I feel strongly about that.
We may dig more into that later on. 3-part question. maybe it's a four-part. It's around happiness. I'm going to ask all, and then you can answer it how you want.
Sure.
Is it important to be happy? What is happy, or what is happiness? And are you happy?
Oh yeah, I am. I have my moments. I'm not going to lie about it. Where I can get very cynical. And that's just an aspect of. Somebody once said that we're all multiple personalities. The difference between, let's say, you and others that actually are clinically multiple personalities is vast. But I think we all have different aspects to ourselves, and then others that are still in shadow. That I think as Robert Bly, a teacher in the early men's movement in the 80s, was saying about shadows. Carl Jung came up with that idea of the shadow, those parts that are repressed and put behind us. And Robert Bly had a talk called The Long Bag We Drag Behind Us. And he said, we go through life and we start putting parts of ourselves into that bag, the shadow. And then other parts that get shamed or guilted or whatever. You can't do that. Okay, back here, back here. He said we spend the first half of our life, I think this is brilliant, first half of our life putting things in the bag, and the next half pulling them out and going, oh, and this too. So now I forgot your question here, Eric. I'm sorry.
No, is it important to be happy? What is happiness? And are you happy?
Yeah, I would say I'm happy. Here's what some of the way that I process my, let's call it my spirituality. I work with guides, spirit guides, and some are very specific spirit guides. Others, they're right out my back door, trees, the clouds, etc. But there's some personal ones that are regularly with me. And I do this thing, Eric. I call it journaling, just for lack. I sometimes call it soul journaling, but in the morning, as best I can every morning, sit down, open up on the computer, my journal. I'll write the date and what's going on, part one, what's going on. And then the second part is downloads. I tune into certain spirit guides. These days, I'd say the last year and a half, it's been the ancestors, because there's a lot of stuff going on with me about the ancestors, personally, as well as I'm teaching a lot about it. So, got one coming up soon, course on that. So what they do is I just transcribe what they tell me. And it's an altered state, a slight altered state. I'm also a hypnotherapist, so I'm familiar with altered states, as well as shamanic journeying, which requires an altered state. We go in and out of altered states, often daydreaming. It's just a mild altered state where I'm receptive, and I listen, and then I just transcribe. And I'm a pretty good typist, so I could follow what they're telling me. But the reason I tell you that is that there's something very consistent that they've been telling me over the past, I'd say, probably 3 years. I've been doing this for, I think I counted, about 15 years. So, it does, and excuse me one sec. Thank you, ancestors. It really touches me. I really feel cared for, in that way. And I feel like they keep me on purpose. If I kind of fall off the road a little, yeah, you know what I mean? They keep me on purpose.
Yeah.
And that to me is really critical today. I have, I don't know, and that's what they tell me too. I got another 12 to 15 years, on the planet. So I'll take it. Yeah, I'll take it. And I'm vital. I'm in good health. I'm in good shape. And I got to attribute a great deal of that to the guidance that is provided. In this case, in the last few years, it's specifically been the ancestors. Here's what they tell me, Eric. They say, we're the ancestral council, but we speak with one voice. And it's like, I'm so blessed. I'm so lucky to have that. But what I wanted to give a background to that. There's a directive that they often remind me of, which reminds me right now what they say. So I'm sitting up a little bit. They say, number one, open your body, 4 things, instead of this. You can do it. I don't care if you do it. I mean, that's not the point. But what happens, you can't see my full body, but my arm is right across my solar plexus.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like holding, my expression, vocal expression back a little bit. Yeah, you got it. So they say, oh, number one, open your body. And I do still go into that habit, but I catch it and I'm aware of it. Open your body, stand or sit tall, because I don't mean to denigrate other men and women that are close to my age, but there's a lot of this,
Yes.
this slumping, and I'll catch myself,
Yeah, we're seeing the next.
Yeah, and it's so open body, stand tall or sit tall, but open body, stand tall, breathe. They just reminded me this morning, you're not breathing enough. It's, pay attention to your breath. So open body, stand tall, breathe. And number 4, keep your sense of humor.
Yeah. I've been getting that too.
Have you? Yeah. It's so critical. I like making people laugh.
Yeah.
And I'm on this string lately of dad jokes.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some, they're really stupid ones, but they're so stupid, they're funny. So if you want to hear a couple, I got them. I got a
You know what I love to do? This is what I would love to do with you. If you want to, when you feel like telling a dad joke, you can leave me a voice message or you can tell me one now. I love dad jokes too. If I see a funny one or I hear a funny one, I'll share it with you. I'll leave you the little voice message.
That sounds good.
I'm a big fan.
Oh, good. Okay, we're on the same. All right. Yeah, I've actually been keeping a log of the dad jokes.
I love it.
And point out the best of them, what I think are the best ones.
Mm.
But the point being, and whatever the means is, to keep your sense of humor. I've also done improv, which to me was absolutely a blast.
Mm.
I through the history of my life, Eric, I've taken chances, I guess would be the best way to say it, to do something that really scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, you dared.
Yeah,
you dared.
Yeah, but I think it's a practice that has helped me face my fears, much more readily. And so I decided, or was prompted, to do improv when I lived in Orange County.
Wow.
I had a blast. What fun it was. And plus it's relational. You need to stay attuned to what everybody else is doing. And here where I live now, I've looked that up. I might do some more improv. I mean, I make funny faces and talk funny and do characters in the mirror in the morning just for fun, until he tells me, knock it off, get to work. Okay. But please, whoever's listening to this, have fun. There's other when there's serious stuff going on, it's appropriate to be serious, but happiness. I saw a movie, Eric, a while back, and I've looked, I couldn't find it. I've been looking for it. This is a few years ago. And guess what the title was? Happiness. And it was interviewing a few people about what does that mean to you? Just like you asked me, what's happiness? And there were a few different stories about that, but the one takeaway that I got from it is do something different, break the routine, go down a different street, try something new, just break the habits of just set routines and try something new, something different. Now, is that the key to happiness? I don't think it's the only one, but I practice that. I do get into routines and they're effective. It helps. I have certain ones that I go through in the morning, for instance, but even little turns and twists, I think, help. Something goes on in the mind. I don't understand what happens, but when we change that up after, let's say, doing it a certain way, and try a different street, walk down a different street, put on a different pair of socks, et cetera, et cetera. Wear some funny clothes, wear some tie-dye clothes.
Yeah.
Go get a tattoo. Do something different, and that encourages that happiness. So that is my answer to your question about happiness. It's so easy, and again, in the period that we're in right now, it's so easy to not just like here, I'll give you an example. I'm told again by my guides. Oh, here's one. I call it, actually, it's called complaining usually, but I call it whining. Is I confess, I put my hand up on that one, and I would defy anyone, yourself included, that's listening to this to say with full truth that they never whine.
Right.
It's baloney. We all do. But what my guides have told me again and again is you can go there, but get out of there as soon as you can. You know, move out of that frame of complaining, bitching, moaning, etc. Don't make it a habit or a style, you know, but be aware, go into it, complain, but then move out of it. Or again, back to try something different. You know, if what you're complaining about is not stimulating something and activating your lightning, helping you lighten up, then do something different. Yeah, try improv, you know. And also open mic. I'm a songwriter too. And I've written several songs. I've got, I think, about 20 on the list, and hopefully more on the way.
Wow.
And another challenge I have is to go to an open mic and play a few of my original songs. And I think they're pretty good, frankly. I think not all of them, I won't say, but I think there's probably about half a dozen that I think, yeah, those are really good.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But anyway, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm chattering on here.
That's the point.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Got it.
One more follow up on the happiness then. In this day and age, in this day, not this day and age, in today, and looking at what's going on between Israel and Gaza, or with the administration in the United States, or with the parks and land here, on and on and on. We can, infinite things we could complain or whine about. We have the ability to affect our media circles, and then that sphere of influence, wherever that goes, yours is yours, mine is mine. But as you meet people, and you see somebody who's stuck in that, they're stuck watching Fox News on a daily basis, and they're just miserable. But they want to undo that. What would be one piece of advice you might give them, besides turning off the TV?
No, you got me. I said it first, though. Yeah, you know, well, let's start there at least. Turn off the TV and do something different. I think that's so simple.
Okay.
I like things that are simple and profound, you know, and that's so simple, you know, that we don't even think about it. Get out and walk on the land. Take your socks and shoes off and walk on the land. Look it up. Look up earthing. You know, how we receive this. I forget what it is. Forgive me. You know, I lapse on the name, but we get, let's just call it energy. We receive energy from the land, and we can reciprocate that by giving something back to the land. You know, get acquainted with the land. I just did a live Zoom live, I called it, on the wisdom of the land. The land has a lot to teach us, and you know much better than I do about that, because that's what you do. That's one of the things you do. So I think that here's another piece on this, Eric. Gratitude. I got curious, you know, because we talk about the vibration or the frequency of certain emotions, you know, and how they vary. And everybody can kind of relate to that intuitively. It's like if you wake up really glum, you know, your energy or your vibration is really lower.
Sure.
You know, etc. Or if you're happy, your vibration's higher. So I thought, let me just look at some charts, you know, that people have put together about that. And there was a continuity between three different charts I looked at between the relationship between gratitude and love. And these charts all the way went up to enlightenment, typically was at the top. And I don't know, depression or hate was at the bottom. But gratitude and love consistently were just like this far apart. So that is profound. It's so simple. But the frequency of love is really close to gratitude. So let's start with gratitude instead of going around hugging everybody at the co-op, you know, and saying, I love you. No, just start with gratitude.
I like that.
Express it. Yeah, express it. You know, so example would be when I said, what I do my best at is to get out of any kind of funk or complaining or anything by shifting back into a higher frequency, you could say. I don't like that way of saying it particularly, but you know what I mean. And the way that's going to do it is gratitude. I mean, I look around and here I go. I get a little emotional. I feel a wiggle of activation in my body. It's just, I have so much to be grateful for. I'm grateful for you, and for what you're doing, because I think what you're doing is very important. And I mean that. I know quite a bit about you actually, but I could look out and go, God, I'm grateful. I mean, I could sit here for the next 20 minutes and I could come up with lots of stuff that I'm grateful for. But regardless of that, that's not the point. The point is by shifting into gratitude, sincere gratitude, like I really mean it. It's true. I'm grateful for my breath. I'm grateful for my health. I work out. I'm grateful for my vitality. I'm grateful that I've got some really good coffee, et cetera, et cetera. I'm grateful for the people in my life. I'm grateful for my daughters, my grandchildren, et cetera. Here I go, give me 20 minutes, but my point isn't to tell you all the things I'm grateful for. It's to really encourage whoever's listening, whenever possible, shift into that and say it out loud too, by the way. You don't have to yell it, but just say it out loud.
I noticed your energy when you mentioned granddaughters, your energy shifted even more so. It elevated, your frequency rose just a little bit. I could feel that. And so to your point, when you find that moment find something that you can be grateful for, you will start to elevate that frequency, right?
Yeah, you saw it, you felt it, you saw it in me. Grateful for my daughters, and then I've got 5 grandchildren. So, it's there's sometimes I jokingly say in spite of me, they've turned out really well.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true.
They're really cool kids. I'm blessed. I'm grateful. I'm very blessed. I feel very blessed. The other thing I say often, Eric, is I'm lucky. I used to think, well, that's kind of stupid to say it that way, and we're talking years ago. But more and more I go, no, I'll take it. I'm lucky. I really am. You say, oh, I'm fortunate, and yes, I'm grateful. But I've been really lucky.
I say the same. I tell everybody that I'm lucky, and people always say, Eric, you're so lucky. And I said, I know, and I appreciate people want to tell me that I'm lucky. I love it. Behind me, you can't quite. I'm going to put my finger on it right there. Is a framed T-shirt that I got the 1994 World Cup in Southern California at Stanford Stadium. I was staying at the Ritz-Carlton in San Francisco with my family, and my father was in his show-off mode, so he's making a little bit of money. He wanted to, take his family to the Ritz-Carlton out there, but we went to see some of the World Cup games out there, and I met Pele, and Pele signed and he autographed my T-shirt. It says, "Good luck, Pele." And I value that as an artifact that Pele wished me good luck. And so I have good fortune, and that's part of it. And I keep that, and this is in my space, and I keep that here because I believe that I have Pele's good luck wished upon me. And I am lucky, and I know that.
It's a blessing. Yeah, a blessing from Pele and an artifact.
Yeah.
Excuse me, an artifact that reminds you of that continually. That's great.
Yeah, it's cool.
Bravo.
So I've got way more questions than we have time for, but I want to get into a couple of meaty ones if we got for a few more minutes.
Sure.
And I want to get into a little bit more of your personal journey and your spiritual awakening. And we'll hopefully maybe we can have another discussion because there's much more meat to get to. Originally, so my question, you've described in the past some moments in the early 90s in a book. You had a foundation for shamanic studies, and you've published things around that about your shamanic path and what led you to where you are today. Could you speak to maybe a lesser known moment that you haven't written about, that you haven't spoken about, that may have been pivotal, or an intuitive encounter that you had?
I have two. I'm happy to. There's two that come to mind. One I did write about, but it was again very much I would call it a shamanic awakening. Not just spiritual awakening. But the first one that popped into my mind, I don't think I've written about this, but I really didn't. I had questions. I remember going to the drive-in movie show about Jesus, with my parents, and I'm in the back seat. And my mom turns around and says, "Well, you believe, don't you, in Jesus?" And I went, "I don't think so. I don't."
How old were you?
12.
Okay.
So it was so funny. Her reaction was like, "What? You don't?" And my dad, God bless him, he leans over, kind of pats her, and says, "He'll learn. He'll learn someday. Let him be. Let him have his own thoughts about it." God bless my father for that. It also calmed me, like it was okay. And then I think it was later, probably my later adolescence, early 20s, when I started getting a little more curious, about the whole spiritual thing. I attended a church of religious science, which is kind of a Christian church, but not heavily emphasizing that as, let's say, a Baptist church or Methodist church, which I did go to those too. So I sampled different ones like that, but never found it quite satisfying, in terms of what I was understanding and hearing. So the Church of Religious Science was a bit of an awakening. And I'll tell you what happened that I enjoyed going to. One is the minister was great, Peggy Bassett. She was real down to earth, it's just like, oh, thank God, literally, thank God she's, very down to earth in her teachings. And then every Sunday, what they would have is the children who had been in their class would come marching down the aisle. And we're all singing, and I'm just going, oh, there's my babies, that kind of thing. Very touching. Even now, it moves me. The memory moves me. Mm. The next one was backing up when I think was really kind of like the start. And that was my daughter, Nicole, witnessing her birth. I was with her. It was a very fast labor, 6 hours, unusually. That's unusual. But watching her emerge from Susan, her mother's body, I was so blown away. Mm. I just sat down. I remember that. And I just put my hand in my head, held my head in my hands. And all I could do was keep whispering a phrase. There really is a God. There is really a God. So I attribute that. I'm going to thank you, Nicole, forever, at least kind of getting me launched, into inquiry about that, then following certain things. And the other story, and I believe I did write, I think I wrote about this in Earth Magic, my book, Earth Magic, but I think it's worth telling, is I did my, I was LSD, mushrooms, the whole thing. And I'm old enough to claim that, as a child of the 60s when all this stuff was going on. Great music too, by the way. But the doors of perception, Aldous Huxley talks about that, using that frame of reference, that the doors of perception change and open up, with psychedelics. So, and I don't have any shame about it. I went through that period and it changed me, because I was witness to an alternate way of seeing things, literally, with the influence of the LSD, the chemical, but also the plant medicine. And then my buddy and I, my God bless my dear friend, a longtime friend, I've known him my whole life, practically. He and I talked about it, and we agreed we'd go up on Cone Peak in the Ventenant Wilderness in Big Sur, what they call Big Sur, off of the Pacific Coast Highway in California. So we hiked up there. We hiked around the mountains for about 2-3 days, and then it was time for the ceremony. So we went up there and divided the mushrooms up. I think I got more than he did. For some, in a moment you'll see why, and I'll try to keep this short because there's a lot to it. But what happened is we did a ceremony, did some prayer, song, etc., and then we ingested. And I really was. I'm glad we did it that way, because ultimately what happened is, as I'd read, Terence McKenna had a book, I think it was The Food of the Gods, and he talked about it at a certain point. The other, capital O, comes in, and that's what happened to me. Is what I would call the other, but also one who gave me a name. His name that was given to me. And thank you, Ana Ooto,
Can you spell that?
A-N apostrophe A apostrophe apostrophe Oto, O-T-O.
Okay.
Ana Ooto
Ana
came in. And when he came in, I'd already, what happens with mushrooms, you can throw up the mushrooms and the rest of the stuff stays. He came in like this. I would joke with Bruce, because I tell jokes a lot, like we're talking about laughter. I would joke with Bruce, and he had been talking about flying. And as I started to go in deeper and deeper into the effects of the plant medicine, I really was, my usual self was like starting to like stand over here, away from me. And it was, Ana Ooto came in so strongly that my ego, myself, this is what happens quite often at a certain point in a journey like that, left. And I finally just said to Bruce, I don't know what's going on, because it goes like this, you go deeper and deeper, the waves get deeper. And I was at one of the crests of the waves enough to say to Bruce, remember, Bruce, you can't fly. I'm not going to be here for a while. I'm busy with
your thing. Yeah.
Yeah. He would do this, Eric. I would joke still after that. I'm on my knees. I don't mean to be gross, but this became an altar, what I had emitted.
Mm-hmm.
He would take, when I would joke at some point, take the back of my head, push me down to the ground in a prayer position, and say in English through my voice, there's no fucking around with this. Got my attention. And then he would soothe my forehead and say in English, we love you, because he would speak in some structure of sound. Still, I could understand him. So his name in the language that he was speaking, Ana Ooto, means the fierce and compassionate one. And he remains. He remains with me and is guided me and will continue to guide me. I know unto my passing into the afterlife. I know it. So speaking of gratitude, immense gratitude, for his guidance. And also this down, face down.
Did you have anybody teach you ceremony before that, leading up to that? Or how did you come about to do that too? And I guess the included in that question is you went to the mountains. So you haven't really touched on your introduction into this love of nature and earth and the land and plants and animals at all. We haven't even touched in that yet. And so that's the meat. So,
yeah.
Maybe you could kind of, as we're kind of coming to the end of your hour that you have for today, maybe you can kind of talk about what is God. When you said your daughter was born, you said there was a God, and then segue kind of into this experience and into your introduction into ceremony and nature and love of earth, from football and psychology and whatever else.
Yeah, well, I think again, Bruce, I got to give him credit, as sort of a big brother guide, even though he's not that much older than me, but he's older. Because he was not a Cub Scout, a Boy Scout, and a Boy Scout leader. He had a troop. So he was, familiar with all that through the Scout organization that he participated in. So a lot of times he and I would go hiking. Aside from any kind of ceremony or plant medicine, we'd go hiking. And he rescued me one time. And that's a whole nother story, but it wasn't like my life was in danger. It's just that I got into a situation where I was absolutely terrified, because I was up on a cliff, about 20 feet. And the only way down was just to slide down the cliff or the side of the mountain. And so he talked me into it, and God bless him for him. He's a brother, by a different mother. he lives in lived in Arizona for a long number of years, and when I'd visit, that's often what we do is we'd go hiking. One of the things, I've only lived here for a little over a year, and I confess I haven't been out as much as I plan to be. You know, I want to go out. There's lakes here. There's streams. Fortunately there's creeks that run all over the place here and nearby in Ashland. You know, so it's great. So I take my dog out, you know, quite often. You know, we go visit this one stream in particular. But there's something about there's a difference. I said this, I think, in the seminar that I gave. I said there's a difference between being on the land and being with the land. And part of that is a shift in consciousness and awareness of being with the land. That it's going to, well, probably not going to sound weird to you at all, but those trees are our ancestors. You know, they've been here a lot longer than we have. You know, the animals that we encounter. One thing I learned from watching this movie, Life on Our Planet, which blew me away, and Charles, my friend who's the ecologist, confirmed it, is that birds came from the dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. You probably know that. I'm going, wow, that was a wow to learn about that. Anyway, I'm drifting quite a bit here in response to your question. But my intention is very clear. You know, there's Crystal Lake. It's a caldera volcano. It's got this clear blue lake that I want to get to. It's about an hour and a half away. You know, the challenge has consistently been finding the time, you know, creating the time, creating the space to do this. And I've been here over a year, a little over a year, but I still feel like I'm settling in, you know, and somebody said it takes a couple of years to really get, you know, settled into a new place. That's not an excuse. It's like, I get what that person was saying about that. But yeah, no, I think that getting out on a piece of land barefoot is one of my favorite things to do. And to walk barefoot on the land, to be so physically, intimately connected, you know, to the land. See, it makes me smile. Think about that.
Another smile, gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a very pleasurable feeling, you know, that I get from the times I have done this. And I advise anybody who's listening, do it. Or just go stand on some dirt. You know, it's okay. You can go to the shower, you clean your feet up later. It's okay. Or you might get a little embedded in your feet. So what? You know, learn to love the land. You know, learn to love the land. And the way you do it isn't to sit here and meditate. You're a good model for that, by the way. A good example of it. That's you do. It's very obvious you do in many ways. But it's get out. Okay, hug the tree. Put your hand on it. You know, feel the life force. Put your left hand on it. Receive the life force, the blessing of the tree. Bring an offering to that tree. Cornmeal. If you don't have sacred tobacco, take some corn. Yeah.
If you saw my video journal this morning, I'm going to send it to you. It's 2 minutes long. You're going to laugh.
Well, it's reciprocity.
Yeah.
You know, think about, you know this, but again, the land, we receive so much from the land that we can give something back again and again and again. If it's our sincere gratitude, great, that's enough. But it helps to have a substance, you know, like cornmeal or sacred tobacco, not pipe tobacco or, you know, sacred tobacco. You can find it. It's not that hard to find, you know, to take some with you. This also, by doing so, ties us into some cultural traditions that do this regularly, so that we are touching into some other kinds of ancestors, not our lineage necessarily, but other human beings, you know, that have had these practices in place for
thousands.
Here I say centuries, thousands of years, you know, tens of thousands, you know, a long, long time. Again, six centimeters, 4.5 billion years, but here we are. So let's learn from the land. Let's learn from our ancestors, our deep ancestors. Let's get acquainted with the ancestral council, whatever you want to call it, that voice that can teach you, that can guide you. One of the things I teach is, I'm sure you know, is about nature spirits and animal spirit guides. We can go look at this tree and not just see the tree and experience the tree, but we can see it as, I call them sales rep. I don't think that's an insult. They're trying to say, come here. And so then they bring us to them, or at least our consciousness to not just the tree, excuse me, not just to the tree, but tree spirit, which you could say is the collective consciousness of all trees. That's pretty powerful. And say, thank you, tree. What message do you have for me? And then you breathe, ideally barefoot, but it doesn't, if you got shoes on, it's cool. And then just say, what message do you have? And then you listen with your eyes, with your ears, and with your being, with your your senses, inside and out, back of the eyelids, or your attention's drawn, to something that becomes the message. You interpret it. The other is, of course, what you hear. I'm very auditory, that I listen, I hear a lot. In the inner voice. But it could be again, once you've asked the question, it could be something that comes in outside. You go, what message do you have for me? Then you hear an owl and you go, wow, an owl in daylight? Okay, owl, brother. What's your message? Same thing. And also, I think that something that's largely ignored, and I encourage, is what do you feel? Not emotions, but what do you feel in your body, sensations and such, because that can be part of that could be an aspect, or that could be the whole message.
Yeah.
We talk about gut feeling.
Yeah.
My heart is this way or that, whatever. Anyway, the world is alive, the land is alive.
Yeah.
And we can relate to that in a different way than we've perhaps been accustomed to in our Western culture. And we can learn from the indigenous wisdom that comes through in various ways, even just being inspired, by tuning in and paying attention. And again, I honor you because I think you're a good example of that. You live with the land. And I think that's a tough one sometimes, because we got all our shelters and air conditioning and all that. Very different, though, a different frame if you think about living with the land.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, this morning I wrote, I posted it to it. I have a TikTok channel that I do, and I posted it was a tree post about speaking with trees and listening and reciprocity with trees. And sometimes it doesn't come back in words, but if you are patient, the trees will speak to you in other ways through not just voice. You'll hear things, you'll know things, you'll feel things, and it comes through.
Yeah, no, that's good. Same idea.
So very similar. Yeah. And that was this morning. So I loved hearing that today, because I think that's inspiring for both of us then to kind of reinforce that right now, the importance of that. I find myself, when I get sucked into a little bit of news, I go out and find a tree. That's who I want to talk with. I don't need to talk to a person. I just go sit with the tree and just listen. And the tree makes me feel happy again. So
yeah, I understand.
They're my best friends. The trees are my best friends now. And it's one. And this morning in particular, I said, it's not just one tree. They're all one tree. I can go to any one and I can get that same. I can go to a maple or to a pine and still get that same. But they do have their own personalities too, which is interesting.
We need as much guidance as we can possibly perceive, and find these various ways that we can have spiritual guidance, or shamanic guidance, whatever you want to call it, guidance from source that emanates through. I found I wrote an article recently, and a lot of stuff with ancestors. I'm doing something coming up here real quick, but one of the things that came up that I'd heard before, and then I looked it up, and it's true, is there some African societies where they believe that God is too big to talk with directly. So they work with intermediaries. And the intermediaries typically are ancestors. So let's take it one more step. Yes, we have our lineage of ancestors, but there was another piece I wrote, and I remember just seeing it a couple days ago, that depends on how far you go back on that 45-meter line. That there's a depth of ancestry that we can work with. The elders, trees, in a strange way, they're our ancestors too. They were here first. They've given to the land that which we were able to assimilate and bring into our own bodies.
So follow up on that, and I don't know if this is a bigger question, I think, and I don't know necessarily how to articulate it, but you said God is so big that we work through these intermediaries. And that would imply, perhaps, that God is external. God is out there in the universe somewhere else.
Right.
Versus God is within all of us. We are God. You are God, and I am God, because we are nature. And God is in the breath, and God is what animates all of us. We are God consciousness. And I guess this is going to be, maybe this will be volume 2. The questions where we start talking about just God. We could spend hours talking about what God is, right?
Right.
So I guess that's the question, though. With that comment, I don't take exception to it, because I do pray out, but I'm trying to, with my thinking mind, perhaps too much, understand both God outside and God within. So if I'm asking for a prayer out, can I pray to God within myself in a way to know that I can do it, I can choose, I can be, right? And so I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments to that.
Oh God, yeah. Like you said, another session probably, but no, you push a button on that one. Well, I think that for a long time, the way that, like, I know I viewed God as some big guy in the sky, that's invisible, we can't see him and all that. And then it came at some point in my journey, well, God is inside, God is in everything. God is expressing as everything, in this world. I think that's true. There are other names, though, for this supreme being.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about what we often refer to as God, as source.
Yes.
Great Spirit.
Yes.
That which emanates and animates all.
Yeah.
Which doesn't exclude that saying God is inside. Well, how did he get there? Or how did source get there?
Mm-hmm.
So I can use that term God, or that word,
all encompassing,
but over the years it's taken on considerably different meaning.
Okay.
And I'm okay with that. I can talk to somebody, anybody, about God, and feel comfortable with it. My view is it's almost abstract and hard to reach, like the African societies, to think, how do I communicate with source? Well, turn around, touch that tree. You get it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's how you communicate with source. Put your hand over your heart. Take a breath. Say, thank you, God, or thank you, source, or thank you, Great Spirit, or whatever name. There's so many names for God.
Yeah.
But if you look at, I just came across something recently. It was pretty interesting in the various religions, how there were their deities. There were access points to God. Jesus was an access point.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would agree.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Access point. So we can more immediately, gives me chills. We can more immediately relate to, like Jesus being a human figure. Wonderful, an amazing teacher, at the time. I don't think he came here to start a religion.
No.
I really don't think so. But he did come here to teach.
Yeah.
Definitely. And anyway, that's a whole nother. I'm sure we could have a conversation about that too, a little bit further. But that's how I view it. It doesn't matter, it's the name. It's also the experience. Like I was told in one of my downloads, life is about experience. That's it, folks. The rest is all details. Well, yeah, there's more to it than that, isn't there? Life is about experience. Kira is what they call me. Yeah, it's okay to say the name they call me is Kira. Life is about experience. Let's start there. So we come up with all these theories and ideas about God and source and and this and that. Take a breath.
Take a
Walk
breath.
out, touch the tree. Take your socks and shoes off. Walk the land in reverence. Appreciate Mother and all that she gives to us, Mother Earth,
Of course.
etc. I'm sorry, I'm going. You pushed a button, Eric.
Well, so it's a hot button for me too, a good one. And so,
Thank you. Well, good. I'm glad.
I mean, I just went and I drifted for a second. I'm flying out to Oregon to sit with you for 3 days and just say, let's talk, let's go. I'm going to record it all. I can get, so that's out there.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm really happy you're a good interviewer and you ask great questions, very stimulating questions, and it gets me to remember who I am, basically. So I'm happy to, if you want to invite me back, we'll do another one down the road when you get back. You're going to be in Oregon.
No, I just envision coming out to hang with you to keep this going live.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
I'm saying I need to sit with you for 3 days straight. And let us go and have these tangents and let me learn from and hear from you. And there's a book here. I mean, that's clearly that's what I'm like. It's clearly there's interviews we could post, sure, and I could share snippets and.
No, you got me going.
I'll talk to you before we do anything, but
you got me going because I've been threatening that I got to start writing a book here soon. So it's clearing the path, just clearing this stuff. Anyway, yeah. So let's we'll close up for today, but again, just sit with this for a few days, and then if you want to continue this, it's okay either way.
I do. No, it's just fascinating, and I've got pages I've written. I don't know if you've noticed me typing as well.
Good.
This.
Well, it's been very inspiring talking with you about this stuff too. So thank you for the invitation to do this.
Thank you for spending the time with me.
Well, and again, I trust that it will be of service. It'll reach some other people too. So that's important right now. Really important.
Real quick follow up on Bruce. Bruce has transitioned. He's no longer on Earth.
Oh, that's good. No, he's 5 years older than me. I'm 77. He's 82. I just spoke with him.
Oh, great.
Seems to be doing okay. It's funny because my group of friends, male friends specifically, I keep, like this morning, I said, I got to contact them, and stay in touch because I know I'm going to be around another, like I said, 12, 15 years. I know that. I trust that, what I'm being told. And I just want to be healthy, Anyway,
have you spent any time camping recently in the last few years?
No, I've been locked into. You should see my office. No, I unfortunately not yet. But I got my family, my daughters and grandchildren and stuff. They're coming and they're going to hang out for a few days. So I would like to take the kids camping, somewhere. We might glamping. Yeah, what's the term, glamping?
Glamping, yeah.
Go to a cabin that's next to the Lake of the Woods is one I've heard about. So we'll see. But yeah, I need to get out. Thank you for that too. I really need to get out beyond the creeks. The creeks are great though. Don't get me wrong. They're creek. They're good. And I take my dog and he's a lab, so he loves swimming, and we have a little.
I'd like to recommend that you get yourself, as you came into the world, into that attire, as you were birthed yourself, which is naked, and lay yourself down in some creeks and just get washed over and really embrace that.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for the blessing. Yeah. And the directive. Okay, my man.
Very good.
Good stuff.
Yeah, my man. Thank you.
And this worked out fine, by the way, on Chrome.
Oh, good.
Not a problem. I thought, okay, well.
I'm going to end the recording. We'll keep talking for a second, but